Well, this is big news, folks. Florida's lawsuit against President Obama's health care overhaul is going forward. Now, a federal judge has ruled that crucial pieces from this lawsuit can indeed go to trial. You've got 20 states that are part of this lawsuit that are basically saying that the health care reform law is unconstitutional and that the government is overstepping its authority. Judge Andrew Napolitano is, of course, our Fox News senior judicial analyst. Needs no introduction, and he's the anchor of FBN's Freedom Watch. Judge, good morning.
Good morning,
to see you here. So, I thought it was very interesting that this judge called this novel and unprecedented. This law. So that always pricks up my ears. That's not a good. Those are not good words from a judge.
Those are not good words for the Obama administration from the judge. And the same words were used by a judge last week in Detroit who upheld its constitutionality. Even he said it's novel and unprecedented. And it is. Here's the thing that's novel and unprecedented. The federal government has never before in the history of the country enacted a law that forces you, everyone, as a condition of living here in the United States, to purchase a product you may not want or need. The product here is health care. That's the core of the constitutional challenge, and it survived yesterday's hearing. What was yesterday's hearing? Typically, when somebody sues the government replies by saying the lawsuit is frivolous, they don't have the right to sue us, we can enact any law they want.
Which they already said. The Obama administration said that initially.
Right. So the government made those arguments, and yesterday the judge accepted those arguments for some parts of the challenge and rejected them for the core parts. So the core parts: can the government force you to buy health insurance? And can the government force the states at their own expense to expand Medicaid, raise their own taxes, spend the tax dollars as the federal government wants them to?
Which is a real question of state versus federal power. Because basically, one of the ways that the federal government, worked the numbers for CBO was to say that they were going to dump a lot of these expenses back in the state's lap.
Correct.
And they're saying, what's with that?
That's why you have 20 of the 50 states suing in this one case, in this one courtroom, saying you can't make us do it. And the judge said, that survives the challenge. I will rule on the merits whether or not this is constitutional in January.
Talk to us a little bit about the process, because people looked at the decision last week, which said the opposite of what this judge is saying. So where do we go from here? Okay,
there are 15 lawsuits in the country. Only 2 have been decided. The one in Detroit last week and the one in Pensacola is halfway decided. All 15 different federal judges will rule. Whichever way they rule, the loser will appeal. And those appeals will go to the intermediate appellate courts. There are 13 of them.
So you could end up with some states where the law is constitutional, some states where it's not?
You could, but the Supreme Court will ultimately rule once and for all if it's constitutional or not. How long will that take? Probably 3 years. Remember, the individual mandate, the obligation to buy health insurance, doesn't kick in until 2014. So the court has a couple of years in which to rule on this.
Yeah, I kind of go back to this, but in every state you have to buy driver's insurance. So does that come into play as a precedent at all in this argument?
No, it doesn't, because that's a state law, and states can make you do things that the federal government can't, and you can avoid buying driver's car insurance by not owning a car. You cannot avoid buying health insurance unless you leave the country.
It's difficult not to own your body, right?
Right. Well, think about it. Can the government, suppose the government declares that the sun causes skin cancer. Can it make us buy and wear hats?
Right.
Now, that's an argument that was made yesterday in the courtroom, and the judge said, very good question. I will answer that one in January when I tell you whether or not this is constitutional.
All right, just so everybody is clear at home, what has happened here is that this can go forward. They're basically, judging on the merits that this can go forward, and they will continue to evaluate it. Judge Napolitano, thank you for breaking that down. Always good to see you. Thanks, Judge.
Pleasure.
And make sure to catch Judge Napolitano every Saturday and Sunday at the Fox Business Network. Freedom Watch is on Saturdays and Sundays. That's why